So is there more of yourself in your image? When you think about being an ATM teacher, can you have the freedom of your head and your breathing, the length and width of your limbs and their ability to know each other in many ways through your torso, your contact with the ground? All of these sensations that we keep coming back to in ATM that we can check into any time of the day. So this last ATM is the ATM out of the elusive obvious in the Awareness Through Movement chapter. And I'm actually going to read it pretty much out of the book so that you can get an idea of what Feldenkrais is talking about, how he puts the bigger picture into his lessons, and how he puts learning in. So sit on the floor. Put your hands behind you and lean on them with your arms almost straight at the elbows. That's an important word, isn't it? Almost straight. So what's the difference between really straight elbows in how you support yourself or if they're just ready to bend a little bit? Does that change anything up in your shoulders or your chest? Bend your knees so that you can put the soles of your feet flat on the floor in front of you. Tilt both knees to your right, using your feet as hinges for moving your legs and knees. So he hasn't talked about the pelvis. He's leading the movement by thinking of your feet being hinges to begin to tilt your knees and legs left and right. So tilt your knees to the left and back to the right. While repeating these tiltings of the knees right and left, observe that the knee movement is initiated by your pelvis. Note that tilting your knees to the right is preceded by the stiffening of the left arm so that the push of the left hand on the floor facilitates the initiation of the movement of your pelvis. So he's joined a few bits together there for you. Well, the tilting of your knees to the right is preceded by the stiffening of your left arm so that the push of the left hand on the floor facilitates the initiation of the movement of your pelvis, coinciding with lifting and tilting your head slightly backwards. So he's being very clear what he's asking for here. Repeat your knee tiltings right and left while attending to the preliminary alteration of your trunk, spine, and head, and to your level of effort. So how much? What happens in your trunk, your spine, and your head to enable you to tilt your legs more easily? Go slowly, and you will find each time easier until you are aware of exactly when you breathe in and when you breathe out during the phases of the movement. So he's really spreading your attention here. I think he's already put nearly every sensory system in there. Contact with the ground, arrangement of your arms and legs and torso, the freedom of your head, your breathing. So begin to change to breathing out at the moment when in the first instance you were breathing in. So you're just going to change your breathing now. So at the moment when you first wanted to breathe in, could you exhale at that point? And continue until you become aware which makes the tilting easier. So is this initiation of the movement for you easier with the breath in or you're breathing out? So he's already asking you to make a lot of distinctions. Whether your decision is right or wrong is immaterial at this point. For when your attention and awareness are improved, in a few moments your judgment will be better, as your sensitivity will increase with the reduction of your efforts. The situation proposed is realizable by either sex, fat or emaciated, old or young, athletes, as well as the not too severely crippled. I love that. Keep tilting your knees for a minute or two, or for a dozen times, or for however long you feel comfortable. So where does this already take you? He's really asked you to spread your attention. He's asking you to reduce your effort. He's asking you to look for comfort, for ease. The difference between one person and another will be slight and consist mostly in how many rehearsals are necessary for one to become aware of the part the rest of the body has to play in making the intention easily realizable. Becoming aware is a significant part of your learning, and it is not at all important which movement is used for this lesson. Even so, we might just as well choose one which is also useful in life. You will in the end agree that you as a human being can move like a cat and about 10 times as fast as what you have up to now accepted as your normal. Remember the rate of reading and my contention that normal is the potentially possible, deformed and limited to normality. Except for parts of ourselves, every one of us uses only a small fraction of our latent ability. The habit of thinking that one must have talent or be born with it in order to be good at anything at all is as true as it is an obstacle to free choice. It is, however, true that we are genetically human, and that what other humans can do, even if it is only one, all others can. By this time you will have rested and become aware of many things you may or may not have known about yourself. Sit again in the position to tilt your knees right and left. This time, tilt with your knees spread apart a little until there is room for first one of your legs and feet to lie on the floor between your knees, and then the other. Thus, when your knees are on the floor tilted to the right, your right lower leg can lie freely between them, with the sole of the foot resting squarely against the left thigh near the knee. Of course, your left leg and foot are also on the floor. So now he's been really clear about making an explicit distance for you to experiment with. Observe that to achieve this, your feet is used as hinges for the tilting legs and remain practically on the floor at the location that they have found themselves while you were tilting and spreading your knees. Using the feet as hinges is crucial throughout to the end of the final phases of the movement. So you really are having to track. Yes, your pelvis is initiating, but it's this weight transfer across your feet that you need to keep your attention on as well. Familiarise yourself with the details of the preparations necessary to make the two symmetrical positions of yourself when the knees are tilted to the right and then to the left. So now he's asking you to compare and contrast. What do you do to make both sides symmetrical in quality and in function? Breathe easily, which means do nothing to breathe other than watching to see that there is no breach of continuity of air coming in and out of your nostrils. Begin to find out which hand on the floor becomes useless when you tilt your knees to the right. So now we're just going to the right. One can be lifted without making anything more difficult or causing a halt in your breathing. So obviously he's used a strong word there, useless, which means you don't need it for support anymore. So is there a point as you tilt your legs? And remember, where was he asking your head to go? Where was he asking your head to go? It was up and back a little bit. So not down, but that as you turned, your head began to go a little bit up and a little bit back. And does that help many of you to find that your hand can become freer? When your head begins to orient up and back. Tilt your knees to your left and back to your right, this time lifting the other hand off the floor. You will then become aware of what you have just understood. So you're rolling the weight across your feet, pelvis is initiating, head is going up and back. So what shape do you have to make? What has to change in your belly for your head to go up and back and for one hand to start to become free of the floor? Keep on tilting your knees right and left. Lift the hand that you found unnecessary to lean on and carry it in the direction of your knees. So that means that it's going in the same direction as your knees. And if your head's going up and back, where would your arm be going? Gradually, you will find it more and more comfortable to lift your pelvis sufficiently to stand on one knee. Go slowly, stay in your exploration. What's it got to do with this distance between your feet working as hinges, where your head's going? Sit, tilt your knees to the other direction until you stand on your other knee. So feeling where are you finding this comfortable to lift your pelvis sufficiently to stand on your knee? Where are you looking? Where is your arm going? Is your arm sweeping down? Is it sweeping up? Note that your feet serve as hinges and otherwise do little to assist in the movements and are better left alone to move as they will. You should, however, become aware and watch that they are not displaced without your intention. So they're still finding that same point on the floor. The lifted arm is carried with your trunk, and you can swing it lightly to assist your trunk and pelvis in being lifted off the floor. I make such remarks only after I see that the students have already realised and are already doing what I am verbalising. In this way, the student feels he has guessed correctly, and his reliance and confidence grow with his awareness. In written descriptions like this, much of the highlighting is of necessity blurred, the timing of the remarks being dictated by the paper. You are encouraged to rest as soon as you feel tired and to start again when you are ready. So let's everyone have a rest. So this again is coming back to these transitions we talked about, this ability that how much of us is in our image of the action to make a transition in space. The orientation of our head, the shapes we're making, where our arms and legs are in space, how that influences the shape that our torso's making, the contact with the ground, our breathing. So the only one he hasn't brought in yet is the teleceptors. But everything else he's got in there. So start again with what you were doing. Turn to your left until you are on your knee. So you're back. Find the position for your feet. Find the position. You're getting clearer where your hands need to be? So everyone's going to the left until you're on your knee with your right arm flung forward to your left. You are still leaning on your left arm with its hand on the floor. To get up on our foot from this position, we usually put the right foot forward on the floor and heave ourselves upright by a concentrated effort of both legs. Does that sound familiar to some of you? That you get to the right foot being on the ground and then you might just push yourselves up? So this immobilizes the moving body, annihilates the kinetic impetus, and makes the getting up slow and laborious. It is the equivalent to putting on the brakes of a car going uphill after it has gathered momentum, when the only choice is to return to the lowest gear, start the ascent again, wasting petrol, and wait for sufficient kinetic energy for the higher gears to be used. It's an interesting analogy, isn't it? Yeah. What happens? In the movement that we are learning now, we are not yet as clearly aware of bad driving. Start again. Tilt your knees to your right first, then swing them to the left. So you're going to be going up to your left, but you're going to start by tilting your legs to the right, then coming across to the left. So you always start to the right, come up to the left. But this time, swing the right arm in front of you, upward to your left, upward, and continue the pelvic movement in its spiral ascent from the floor until it raises your right hip joint sufficiently in the direction of your moving right arm to straighten your right knee. Your right foot will stand on the floor. As the pelvis carries both hip joints, the left one will also rise enough for you to feel yourself standing on both feet with your entire weight. The pelvis moves from the sitting position and twists spirally upwards to your left. And if you are sufficiently aware of the trajectory of your pelvis and do not stop it, but let it follow its course, it will complete its rotation until you are facing what was your rear standing on your feet. So you can turn exactly 180 degrees. Exactly 180 degrees. So you always tilt your legs to the right first, round to your left, and feel many of us turned more than 180 degrees because we haven't got the lift. We're doing the round, but not so much the lift. It's fine. Just notice where you are at the moment. So is there something about this reaching arm, this orientation of your arm going up? So in this movement, you are using the original impetus of your pelvis and trunk, which helped to swing your knees to the left. Remember, because we started to the right. So we started from over to the right to start that swinging movement up to get you to spiral. Start again until you are aware of how you direct yourself while moving. Getting up, starting from sitting with both knees to your right, swinging leftwards to stand facing backwards will be practically instantaneous and effortless. Repeat, starting with your knees tilted to the right, and attend to the uninterrupted motion of your pelvis. So now he's broken it down a little bit. You've started doing the movement, and now he's suggesting that if your pelvis just keeps moving up and to the left, is that going to organize something? And again, many of you have lost the head back, the beginning movement of where your head's going through space. So feel the difference if your head goes down. What happens if you're looking down as you do this? If your head doesn't lift up. Can you feel you're going to turn further? Your arms, feet, and everything else will then organize themselves perfectly with your pelvis. This is because your head is carried, here's your next point, in the same ascending spiral, with your eyes moving to find the horizon when the ascent is complete. So there's another one. When you're oriented, you know your eyes are going to be looking, you'll be 180 degrees behind you, and you will be looking straight to the horizon. Sit on the floor, close your eyes, and see with your mind's eye the trajectory of your head and pelvis. When you are clearly aware of the movement, then think of the ease and speed. So then he puts quality in. The ease and speed with which you rose from sitting to standing in one simple action. This apparent simplicity is due to the integration of all the complexity of details into one act of intention. Repeat again, starting with your knees tilted to your right as before, but this time do not lift your left hand decisively after all your weight is on your feet. which means you do not complete the movement to be fully upright. So stop at that point where your left hand is still on the floor. Stay in this position and imagine how to return to the initial sitting configuration. So now he's going to look for reversibility. It's going to break it down. Where are those points? Do you know where your feet were in sitting? How do you get back? And to get to that point, can both, so you've lifted your pelvis, and then you'd have to take your right foot back again to where it belongs on the floor. And did you get it back to where it belonged? This spatial awareness is but another facet of your kinesthetic sensation. In well-learned intentional movement, attention glides. Here we go, attention glides so easily from internal contact of muscular sensation to spatial or external contact that we do not feel we are doing it. A single act is simple, even if it is as complex as writing this description. You have probably found that to reverse a movement in space, it is also reversed in its timing. We cannot obviously reverse time, but we can think of our last movement with the right foot. The right foot will thus start the reversed motion to sit. Because can you feel it's your right foot that's the last bit that comes around? When you swing, there's the... So now you're going to go back with your right foot. Initiate and go back. Okay, so now come back to the beginning. And now could you do the same to the other side, but using what you've already learnt? What are you already aware of when we spiraled up to the left? And the bigger the image you have, what are the really important things? My pelvis never stops moving. My head is carried by my pelvis. I'm clear that I'm going to end up 180 degrees behind me with my eyes on the horizon. I know how to go back to where I was. Because this is fundamental, again, to our organisation. Our speed comes from our pelvis. And it has to be free in its articulations to do that. So if I want to so feel, as you're doing this trajectory, stop your pelvis and feel how you stop. Restart your pelvis and feel how you can keep going. If you want to slow down, it's your pelvis that's going to slow down. If you want to go faster, it's your pelvis that's going to move faster. You can now become aware that the limbs arrange themselves ideally to follow the intended pelvic motion. The awareness you have gained in this learning will be cardinal and will stand for a wealth of other movements, even those you have learned before by trial and error and maybe have never followed up to the exhilarating speed and fluency you could have obtained now. So he's really giving you a sense of what allows us to be better organised, including all of ourselves, all of our senses, pelvis doing the big work, head carried by our pelvis. The process of self-direction is being improved, and not any particular movement. The particular achievement is incidental and is a prize gained for better learning. So we may now have the patience to satisfy our curiosity. So sit on the floor with your right foot behind you on the right, knees spread apart to allow your left leg to lie between them. So we've been doing this spiral up. And where he's going to go now might be a little bit familiar. Lean on your left hand, placed on the floor to the left of your pelvis, on the spot where you find it will support you most comfortably. Huh? So where was that? What did you find from doing that lesson that got it into a comfortable position? Lift your right arm with the elbow slightly bent to raise your forearm. The hand is hanging downward at eye level. So most of you have got 90 degrees bending. Is that what he said? In your elbow, he said slightly bent. Huh? So that means it's pretty straight. Huh? So just feel that difference. What does pulling your arm in do to you, and what does taking your arm further away do? Which is going to let you turn a little bit easier? When your elbow's really bent, or when it's only slightly bent? Okay, so you found that. Lift your right arm with elbow slightly bent to raise your forearm. Hand hanging down is lifted to eye level at a comfortable distance in front of you. So where's eye level? Great. Take your trunk, your head, and your right arm with your eyes fixed on your hand and turn the whole of you to your left, to the angle that feels as if no effort is involved to do so. And stay thus slightly twisted to your left. Breathe quietly with little externally visible movement. So it's really interesting, isn't it? He's now going, you've done this lesson before, I know. But how's he set it up by doing this big spiraling that probably most of you are a little bit more comfortable here than you would normally be? No? So he's already set up that now we can begin to find some more movements through your torso. So after a minute or so, it's interesting. So he's letting you sit there after a minute or so. We haven't quite got that time today. Turn your eyes to the right. Move your eyes only, keeping all the rest motionless. Move your eyes to focus on the hand and then again to your extreme right. But without forcing yourself above the simple movement of your eyes. So everything's still, it's not fixed, it's still over to the left, and you're moving your eyes. Repeat this shifting of the eyes to the hand to your extreme right about a dozen times. Then stop, close your eyes, resolve to stop moving immediately you become aware that you are increasing your exertion, and lift your arm with the hand in front of your closed eyes. So you're going to come back. You can come back to the middle. Put your arm up again. Turn only once to whatever angle you will. Stop, open your eyes, and you will realize that you have turned several or many degrees more to the left than at the beginning. Stay there. Keep your eyes on your hand and move now only your head to the left. as easily as you can. So we were moving your eyes to the right, but now we're moving your head to the left. So your eyes stay looking at your hand at this slightly bent elbow, and you repeat 12 times, moving your head only. Again, when you're finished, close your eyes, come back to your beginning position. Keeping your eyes closed, again, turn around yourself, keeping that elbow just softly bent a little, and check again how far you've gone. See if you effortlessly twisted yourself through a bigger angle. Stop to think how different this is from your usual experience. The exercising, the movements, were in direct opposition to where the improvement was wanted, yet it did in fact improve. Have a rest on your back, during which time you can become aware that your two sides do not lie the same way, and you realize that one of them has changed through what you have just done. So while you're in this position, let me put in your second reflection question. So over the last 2 weeks, what questions do you have? And what are you interested to explore more of between the segments? And can you feel to look for those questions? You don't have to tighten anywhere, focus too much. Maybe it's just a space that you're in where you're letting that the questions can be very soft inquiries, following what you're interested in. And that those questions you're asking can be asked from a place where all of you or more of you is in your image. Sit again as before. Twist yourself comfortably to your left. Lean on your left hand. So now your hand again, round you go to the left. So you twist it comfortably to your left. See how that is now. And put your right hand on top of your head. Move your head, assisted by your hand, as if to touch your right ear to your right shoulder. And then reverse the movement to touch your left ear toward your left shoulder. The movement becomes easier and more extensive if you become aware that while your right ear moves toward your right shoulder, your pelvis is rocking so that your right side becomes shorter while the ribs on the left side fan out. The hand moves your head the other way around, and the pelvis and the ribs move the other way around. And what happens in your pelvis? So now we're initiating the movement from your pelvis. How do you allow, from your head, how do you allow your pelvis to respond? What's happening through your arms and legs, your torso? Do you feel any weight shift in your hips, in your legs, as you do this side bending? So that it doesn't have to be a pure side bending. Your head is side bending, but maybe what's happening down in your pelvis might be much more complex. To allow your head to come closer to the right shoulder and closer to the left shoulder. So some of you, I can see your pelvis is getting a whole spiral here as your head's taken left and right. After a dozen bendings, close your eyes, come back to your starting position, and with your right hand in front of your eyes again, and with your resolve to stop immediately when you feel you're straining, turn, stop, and feel how far you've twisted now. And many of you will realize that you've twisted even more. So how come? It is again an improvement with unorthodox training. Sit in the original position, twist to the left, but this time place both of your hands on the floor to the left. Organize yourself to lean on both hands equally. They should be shoulder width apart on the floor. Twist your shoulder girdle to the left while turning your face, which is your head and eyes, to the right. Become aware of the movement of your right and left hip joints and your buttocks to start the shoulder girdle motion. So he's suggesting that this is a movement that might be initiated from your hips and your pelvis. Watch your sensation in the spine. So that you can really feel it's this spiraling movement of your spine that's enabling your your shoulders to turn in one direction as your head turns in the other direction. Come back to the front. Sit. Feet standing, knees apart. Back in the very original position with your hands behind you. Tilt your knees to the right. Swing your legs and up you go. Did anything change? So by doing those variations in your torso, but especially Feldenkrais would suggest it's the ability to differentiate our eyes and our head that really begins to allow this movement to become easy. So here's your 4 points again. Really, just a slightly different idea. How many ways can we make this transition from the floor up to standing, really understanding where our points need to be, where we need to orient. So you sort of come up standing like the Statue of Liberty. Huh? try it to the other side. So you now start with your legs to the left and rehearse all the steps of twisting up. What can you transfer? So I really love this lesson because the eyes organise the movement, is so profound, but that he does all of that movement first to set it up. The big movements through space, get more parts of you moving, so you then come back and refine. So next time you're up, stay up. How would you teach ATM from this space? What might you be able to see in others as well as sense in yourself or see in yourself? How free would your head be to be able to see more people around you, up and down, left and right? How easily does your weight shift? How free is your head? What's your breathing like? All of these different ways. So this is what we take with us every day. That we can keep coming back to, these sensations of what is it when my head feels free, when it's got this very fine movement up the top of my skull. What is it when my weight can shift easily over my feet? And it's not that I'm all in, but I've got all this adaptability to shift my weight. I can choose to go somewhere, or I can choose to stay in one place and have just as many options. This movability across the ground. What is it when my arms and legs start to respond to the movement of my middle? When I begin to get this sense of it's the middle, the freedom in my middle. It just sort of tells me where my arms and legs should go. So your last little reflection as you begin to walk around is feeling this internal space, the external space around you. How can I utilize these wonderful colleagues I have around me between the segments? And I know you do many things, but how important is it to get different perspectives, for their learning to nudge our learning along? So thank you so much for allowing me to be part of your learning. And where's Lisa? Lisa, do you want to say something?
Just that it's been really delightful to be in this group and to see where you're at this stage of your learning. And I've learnt a lot. I'm sure